Latest on Sherri Papini. The California mom made national headlines in 2016 when she disappeared for 3 weeks, then turned up battered and branded, claiming she'd been abducted by 2 Hispanic women. Now she's behind bars, charged with faking the kidnapping. We're going to speak live with the sheriff in charge of the case after this report from Kaylee Hartung in Los Angeles. Good morning, Kaylee.
Good morning, George. The Papini family tells us they're confused by several aspects of the charges that Sherri now faces, and they hope to get clarification. But the 55-page criminal complaint filed here, it documents how detectives used DNA evidence, cell phone data, and testimony from Sherri Papini's ex-boyfriend to uncover the truth.
Accused of faking her own kidnapping, this morning Sherri Papini is in jail. The 39-year-old detained, authorities calling her a danger and a flight risk ahead of her upcoming court appearance on Tuesday. A spokesperson for her family claiming she was ambushed in front of her 2 children when federal authorities arrested her at their Northern California home last week. A more than 5-year investigation, unraveling what authorities describe as an elaborate web of lies. Papini seemingly disappeared in November of 2016, reappearing 3 weeks later, badly injured, claiming she was abducted by 2 Hispanic women and physically and emotionally tortured, beaten, and drugged. Her husband, Keith, speaking exclusively to ABC News just days after they were reunited at the hospital.
One of the officers kind of braced me and kind of put his arm around me, and he said, prepare yourself. She's alive, and you just got to be happy. They branded her. And in her poor face, I got nauseated just looking at her. It was so hard for me to see her like that. And bruises were just intense. The bumps from, being hit and kicked and whatever else.
But investigators say they've discovered Papini harmed herself to support her false statements while staying with a former boyfriend. Papini is now facing up to 25 years in prison if convicted of charges for lying to federal agents and defrauding the state's Victim Compensation Board of $30,000, which paid for visits to her therapist for treatment for anxiety and PTSD, according to the court filing.
And the criminal complaint also highlights how Sherri Papini and her husband used some of the GoFundMe campaign that was supposed to help find and bring Sherri home, a fund that totaled nearly $50,000, to pay off some personal credit card expenses, though no charges have been related to that money. George.
Okay, Kaylee, thanks very much. Let's bring in the Shasta County Sheriff, Michael Johnson. Sheriff Johnson, thank you for joining us this morning. I know you've been on this case for a long time. What first made you think something was up?
Well, there was 3 stages to the investigation, and one when she went missing and the search for Sherri and deployment of resources for that. The second stage was actually trying to locate the perpetrators, the suspects that were described and the sketches that were drawn. And then the third phase is where it really started to come into light, and that was when Sherri Papini reappeared. The evidence was starting to be collected and all the facts were being vetted out. And that's when things really started taking a turn in the investigation.
So what's your theory of the case? What happened?
Well, without getting into the details of the case, it is a case of calculated deception, driven, I think, by her narcissistic behavior, and it really had an impact on this community and nationwide as far as that goes.
Well, we covered it heavily. I remember that at the time. It also brought a lot of scrutiny to your department. And you say that one of the big problems here is the resources that were diverted to people from people who really needed them.
Yeah, and that is the big problem. There was a lot of time, effort, resources, money, multi-agencies coming together, putting forth this effort to try to, help a victim and solve a case that was tragic. Human trafficking is a real thing, and there are victims out there that need our help. Investigations are complex and budgets are tight. So when we put all that effort into such a case and find out that things are not as they seemed and we've been deceived and law enforcement has been duped, it's really taxing on everybody.
And for the victim to blame 2 Hispanic women, this must have hit the Hispanic community and your community very hard.
It did. People in the community created anxiety immediately among a community that is pretty stable and feels safe. Well, they suddenly didn't feel safe to walk the river trails and to go out and be alone. You know, you have a story of a typical American mom who was just abducted by what seemingly is a cartel type of human trafficking operation, which is just not true. And that disrupted a lot of things for a lot of people around here.
Do you have any idea why she did this?
I don't. Again, you know, that's probably going to come out and unfold in the trial, and we'll figure out what those particulars are with that. But covering up a story, and again, you know, selfish, narcissistic behavior.
Do you expect that more charges are going to be coming for either Sherri Papini or anyone else involved?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't necessarily say I suspect it. It's going to go to the grand jury. They'll dole out the indictments that they feel is appropriate, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised because she didn't pull it off by herself and there's other people involved.
Sheriff, thanks very much for your time this morning. This is really some case.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.